Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Spit It Out podcast. My name is Eric.
Ashley.
JC.
And Joey.
Welcome back to the Spit It Out podcast. Hope everyone had a safe and positive week. Today, I would like to welcome a special guest, more special than usual, my very own dad, Craig Spielman.
Yeah, welcome to Spit It Out podcast, sir.
First of all, it's great to be here and see this in action. I've heard the podcast, and it's great to be able to see what goes on behind the scenes. And I want to thank Eric and the crew for inviting me here.
Anytime.
Anytime.
Pleasure to have you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, and we're thankful because you accept the invitation. Eric has talking about you a lot of times, same as his mother. And something that touched me really good and really deep is when he expressed himself about his mom. We were talking about a powerful woman this time on this episode, and the way he expressed about his mom is just pure love. The way she has educated him and everything, the way she raised him up, and that really resembles a lot to me, and I respect that on him because I was raised by a single woman too. And when he was talking about his mom, it just made me remind me my mom, how she struggled and everything. And I'm really grateful to meet you, both of you. It's been an honor for me because this kid is so awesome. Since the moment I met him, I told him always, like, he was the first person that I remember mentioned my name as soon as he met me. That's just a special thing for him in my heart. Since that moment, I don't know, for me it was like, I didn't expect him like turn around and say, hey, Juan, or his name is Juan. And I was like, wow, this guy is well being raised, and you guys have done a great job with him.
Well, I appreciate it. And we're happy with Eric's accomplishments as well. And, we've always tried to do the right thing with him. And I could tell you some funny stories, but I won't embarrass him. But when you're raising boys, especially, they have to have a mixture of love, a lot of love, but you have to have discipline too.
You're absolutely correct.
And one of the things that I really enjoyed is I taught Kung Fu for 20 years, and Eric was one of the youngest kids in the class. There was actually, for Kung Fu, it's just adults. Because it's so complicated. It's not like karate. It's very different. And, Eric, like understanding what was going on, he really, really picked things up quickly. And there's a form with the Chinese broadsword. And it would take an adult at least 3 to 4 weeks to get through all the moves for one complete form. And Eric did it in 2 days.
That's impressive.
Wow, amazing.
And he used to be really, really good in Kung Fu, and then kind of baseball got in the way a little bit, and he stopped really doing that. And, one of the things that I would love to see him do is pick that back up, because that's something that stays with you for life.
Yes.
And, sports like baseball or basketball, as far as being something in it is a short shelf life.
It is.
You go from maybe grammar school till about, college, and either you go to the pros or you go to the old man's league. And, with Kung Fu, though, you never stop learning. And you never stop learning, and it changes your experience completely. And that's one of the things that, I've enjoyed. And like I said, I've done all kinds of sports and played basketball all my life up until, I want to say, about 10 years ago when my knees started really going.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Kung Fu and the basketball together destroyed my knees. But I got my first job because I played basketball. I was playing in a league where a lot of NBA players were playing. I didn't like college coaches. I got a full ride to a school. Didn't follow through. I stayed for 3 months. Didn't like the school. Left. Then I said, you know what? I'm just gonna do this on my own and actually learn something in college. Because in high school it was all about, I just cared about playing basketball.
Okay.
And you mentioned before, Ashley, your communications major. I double majored in history and communications.
Okay.
And but I was playing in I was playing in leagues where guys would get going up and down to the NBA, and I played with a lot of NBA players. So the whole thing is, I played against these guys at Merrill Lynch in a summer league, and I destroyed them. And they said to me, "Well, after college, what are you going to do?" I was like, "I don't know. Try to make it to the NBA." And they said, "Well, if that doesn't work out, what are you going to do?"
Yes.
And they offered me a job in a great position. I was on Wall Street for 40 years after that, and I never took a business class in my life.
Okay.
So, it's really about relationship building. It's really about, how other people see you. It's about getting out, though.
Okay.
One of the things that I see today, a lot of people aren't getting out, and I don't mean COVID.
Yes.
None of us have gotten out with COVID.
No, yeah.
Right? I mean, this is kind of a disaster, but before that even, people, playing video games, people are doing things, and I'm not knocking video games. I play with Eric and the guys every once in a while, but it's to a certain degree, right? And if I didn't get out and play in that league, I wouldn't have had this job. I wouldn't have had this career.
Yes.
And you just think about that, right? That one meeting with those people impressed them enough where they wanted me to come work for them. And, there's a lot of funny stories about Wall Street back in that day. And when I went for my interview, my friend ran a group of people.
Okay.
And he said, "Well, you can't work for me because everybody knows I know you." So he goes, "You're going to work for this guy," his name was Tommy McLaughlin, who was about 300 pounds and about 5'6" maybe. And Tommy says to me, he says, "You're going to make this much money, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. You got any problems with that?" And I went, "No." He goes, "Okay, this is 10 o'clock in the morning." He goes, "Come with me, get your coat." And we go out, he takes me to a bar, and we start doing shots.
At 10 a.m.
At 10 a.m.
Okay.
And
Nice interview for a job, eh?
And he says to me, "I wouldn't trust someone that wouldn't drink with me." And I already had the job, but
yes.
And then and then it was a matter of like really exceeding. Because the one thing that sports gave me is, and Eric can tell you, I'm an A personality,
Yes.
and I want to be the best at everything I do. And so from there, then I ended up. This was at Merrill Lynch, and I ended up moving into a systems group and running a major project, and then I went to Dean Witter after that, which is now Morgan Stanley, and had a good career there. Then the best was going to J.P. Morgan, which at the time really was the best firm in the world. I mean, if you couldn't there's no firms like that around anymore, unfortunately. You were dealing with the best people, the smartest people around, the people with the most ethics, the people who looked out for talent, and people who really cultivated your talent. They treated you really well, they paid really well, and they expected you to work hard. And you did all those things, and it just, I was able to achieve the things that I wanted to achieve, and I never thought I'd be able to do that. Like, a lot of jobs in these places pay a lot of money, but they're boring. I was able to create, and I created a whole system for managing risk.
Oh wow, amazing!
That ended up, we got JP Morgan got a patent on it. I created the actual then physical system, the technology around it. And the methodology around it. You can look it up. There's a U.S. patent with my name on it, right?
Okay.
And then from there, life really changed a lot, because instead of being in a what I call an internal job where you're just dealing with people inside the company, then I started going out and getting clients from around the world. Like the Federal Reserve was a client of mine, the Bank of China, Merrill Lynch was a client of mine, like all these major companies. And the challenge of going in and presenting to them all the time and managing them, but also developing the systems. And at the time, I was still the head of IT risk for J.P. Morgan. I still had a day job.
Okay.
I think I probably did about 200 presentations in a year. Went around the world. I was in China, I was in Europe, I was all over the place.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. So you were around the world just doing these presentations for the company JP?
Well, doing presentations. Then when companies would sign on for the technology, then we would install it, and we would also train them on risk management.
Okay.
The World Bank, for example, spent a lot of time with them, and it was amazing because I didn't know really much about the World Bank before I went down there. And the thing about risk management, and for audience purposes, risk management is really the potential for loss in pursuit of goals, and that's the simple definition for it. So you have a goal, you want to be a journalist. Well, we would say, okay, well, what's your strategy to do it? What's the risk to that strategy? Okay, and then what are you going to do to mitigate that risk within your appetite? Right? What are you comfortable with? And that's where you really see if people really want to do stuff.
Okay.
It's kind of like weighing the pros and cons of something and seeing if the pros outweigh the cons, right?
Not necessarily. Okay, what it really is saying, what's the risk of me achieving this goal? Like, I want to play in the NBA. I have the risk of competency risk, right? How's my shooting? How's my rebounding? How's my defense? How's my offense? Am I strong enough to play every day? So, those are all risks. And then it's like, okay, how do I mitigate that? Well, I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to run 10 miles a day. I'm going to dribble for 3 hours, and you get a lot of people say they want something, and and they're praying and they're hoping, but they're not really doing the things they need to do to actually get the thing done, and they don't want to face it.
Yes.
They want to hope, but they don't want to do the hard work. And what you see the difference is between the people that dream about stuff versus the people that actually do it. Is the people that actually do it. They'll put that hard work in. They'll work, 12, 14 hours a day doing something while everybody else is distracted. Everybody else is playing video games. They're doing all kinds of stuff that doesn't really help them. And that doesn't mean that the guys who do that stuff aren't playing video games, but that's after their workout. That's after the job's done. Then they'll relax. They'll do, things to get their mind off it. If you look at... I said I got a chance to play with about 50 NBA players, and the one thing they all had in common is there was a guy, Jeff Rulin, at Iona. I used to play with Jeff a lot, and Jeff made it to the NBA, but he worked out more than anybody, and he was already anointed, like this guy's going to make the NBA from high school, right? But he was the one who worked out every day in the gym, went then to the weight room and worked out all the time, and they really taught me something. It taught me that if you really want something, you can't talk about it. You have to go out and do it.
You just got to work.
Right. It's about putting the hard work in. And, so when I got this job, when I created this system and product, I reached the nirvana of working, which is, the nirvana of working is that it's not work. I'll be up to 3 o'clock in the morning some nights. I'm negotiating a deal with people in Thailand, and it didn't bother me that I had to get up in 2 hours. Because this was something I was passionate about.
Something that you love to do.
Something that you love to do, and
yes.
And you don't feel like you're straining. You can work 14 hours a day, 15 hours a day, and if you have to have the courage to love something, though.
Yes.
A lot of people don't have the courage to really love something. They say, they dream, but they don't go out and do it. And to me, that's the biggest sin you could have. If you really love something, you have to go out and really grab it, and everything else should fall away.
Yes.
And that's what I see with a lot of people. This is not necessarily generational, because people, even in my generation, kind of floated. They got jobs and they kind of stayed in the same thing. Maybe they got a little bit of a raise every year, and they kind of just did the same thing every day. And and I see people now, it's a lot worse. I see, I left the kind of regular workforce in 2015, and now I'm the lead risk officer for a consultant firm.
Okay.
Right. It's risk intelligence officer is the name. Right. In other aspects, I've seen people like, we did all this hard work. They come in and they're at the bottom of the pyramid, and they're like, "Oh, you want me to do that?" Well, no shit, I want you to do that. Like me and my boss would look at people like, "Are you kidding?" like we would volunteer to do stuff. We did stuff all on our own.
Yeah.
We didn't even need people to tell us to do stuff. Like you were doing stuff that was way beyond what anyone would even ask you to do, and that's a loser's attitude. I mean, you got to lose when you come in an attitude like that. And the people who really embrace those things, do whatever it takes, those are the people that are going to be successful. And like I said, in my job, I was able to be successful because, number one, I used to think about my job a lot, right? So you have your day-to-day stuff, but I would think about how could I make this better, what could be better, and then I had good support from people above me that believed in, the vision that I had. But I had a vision.
Yes.
A lot of my friends that, were in the business for 40 years, they didn't have any vision. Again, they did good PowerPoint here and there. They did their job well every day, but they didn't look to improve things. They were satisfied with just the status quo.
Okay.
And that's the worst thing you could do.
And would you tell me what was your vision when you were working for this company?
Right. So, so what happened was there was a copper trading scandal, right? Trading copper at the big banks.
Oh, okay.
And a bunch of banks. It was like a $2.6 billion trading scandal.
Okay.
There was a guy at Sumitomo Bank who was basically doing rogue trading.
All right.
And all the other banks they kind of helped him in a way because he was offering above market prices and everybody was willing to sell him things above market price. But why would that should have tipped people off right away.
Right away, yes.
So after a couple of years, when it blew up, when they found this out, all the banks had to do what's known as a self-assessment. And you had to look at all your areas and say where the risk was, how effective were the controls, and then you had to come up with action plans to mitigate those risks.
Okay.
And I left, I was in an audit position, and I left that job to work for the chief information officer at JP Morgan, who wanted to start an IT risk group.
Okay.
And he's way ahead of his time. This is before IT risk was even on the map. And he asked me to do that and work directly for him. And that week, the scandal hit, and then we had to roll out self-assessment throughout the entire company. And I had to do all the technology, and I was by myself. I had half a secretary. I didn't even have a full secretary. But I didn't, complain and moan about it. I actually, followed the directions that they gave us, and then I went around the world doing these assessments in all these different countries and just getting it done. And I came back and, my CIO said, we met the requirements of the Federal Reserve. We did everything we needed to do. He said, but was it worthwhile? I said, no, it was terrible. And I explained to him why, and I said, we'd be better off doing it this way.
Okay.
So we used to ask people, oh, what's your risk? And people didn't know. They'd be like, my boss is an idiot. That's my risk, I mean, we actually got people saying that, right?
Oh.
Versus said, you know what? Let's tell them what their risks are and let them assess it against standard, guidelines. And then I built, working with a team of people, we built the system to actually do that because before it was all paper. And you couldn't track the action plans. You couldn't track if things were late. And we said, we need to do this online. And it ends up being, once we did everything online, there was reports that automatically generated that showed you graphically what was going on. And it sent emails to people telling them, your action plans are coming due. So it really helped the whole process. And then it went from an average of about 86 hours to do an assessment down to 3.
Wow.
Right? And it gave them information they never, now you could compare one office to another. You could compare for one subject, one risk, you could compare it throughout the whole world.
Okay.
So, and then you could see where you need to do things. And there was a lot of other great things about it. But, it became a huge hit because it was taking a lot of manpower for the whole firm to do this. I developed it. We rolled it out in technology, which I had control of. Then the other business people started seeing it, and they were like, oh, you got to come show me this. You got to come show me this. And I'm talking about people that, were at the top of the firm were asking to meet with me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of fun. There's people on the board who said, they would come down to my little office and I would do a demo and they go, oh my God, you gotta commercialize this. So J.P. Morgan wanted me to commercialize
Okay.
it, and nobody even knew what that meant really at the time. And we figured it out, and we partnered with Ernst & Young to actually have them help sell it, because we didn't have a sales force for this or anything. And that was a good move, and I did a deal with them. And from there, we started, one of our first clients was Merrill Lynch, Bank of Tokyo, British Petroleum.
Wow.
And then the Federal Reserve used to audit us. So one of the guys from the Fed comes in, I said, okay, everything's on this system. All you got to do is I'll give you an ID. And the guy goes, oh, you got to come back with me. And I did a presentation for the head of the New York Federal Reserve and his team. And they were like, yeah, we got to do this. So the Fed became a client of mine. We had all these things going. And then I was supposed to spin it out. They wanted me to spin it out, and I would have been head of the company.
Okay.
And then Chase ended up buying us and stopped the spin out. So I would have been extremely wealthy if that would have lasted. Maybe if they didn't buy us for another 6 months, I would have already been out and running the company. And then Chase just basically ruined it. But there was a lot of good people at Chase who I was actually negotiating with for the license. And their joke was, oh, now we get it for free. But it was a different company then. Like a lot of the senior Morgan people left. And they didn't have the same entrepreneur type of attitude, because the CEO of J.P. Morgan wanted to have a whole bunch of spin-outs. And some of them are already out. Like there's a Market Access was also spun out after me. I was like the first one to spin anything out with them. But it didn't get to the spin-out phase. But commercialized software and Market Access, their stock price is around $500 a share right now.
Wow.
And those people became extremely wealthy. And I went on for about 4 years. It was a struggle with the new organization. They didn't feel ownership of it,
Yes.
But it was still good. I love my clients. I love working with them. We worked. Learned a lot about sales, learned a lot about client relationship management.
Okay.
Like, a simple rule is like never tell a client no. You just give them a bill. You just tell them, well, if you want something, it's going to cost this much, and then you find out if they really want it.
Yes.
But we never tell them no. It could be the stupidest idea in the world, and I would never tell them no. It's just like, okay, that's what you want. Maybe you got a good reason, maybe you don't, but this is what the price is going to be.
Yes.
And I also read a book that I recommend everybody read. It's called The Invisible Touch.
The Invisible Touch.
The Invisible Touch, yeah.
Okay.
And I read it on a flight overseas, and it's a small book, but this guy, Harry Beckwith, is the author. And he talks about really client management and marketing and a lot of mistakes that he made. And, and a lot of the things just resonated with me. It's simple read. I think you can get it on Amazon for $4 now. But like a lot of things just hit me. I was on the plane reading it, and some of it sounds like common sense, but it's one of those things where you think it's common sense, but you wouldn't have thought of it.
You would thought, yeah. It's one of those books that you start reading and it's like they're speaking to you.
Yeah,
and
exactly work in that situation. Like one of the things.
Yeah, it's one of those books. Yeah.
He said in the book was there's some clients you don't want, and that is really true. There's some clients who really cost us a lot more money than what they were giving us because they were so needy.
Okay.
And they were always complaining about something, and I didn't have a lot of those. I didn't have any of them actually, but I was always some people that were like negotiating with us, and they would go on and on and on.
Like
it's like, okay, well, either sign the
details.
contract or, I'm not coming back here anymore.
Yes.
And then they try to develop it on their own, and they do stuff like that. Like, you got to be able to read those kind of clients. And I did that for, I guess the whole time was about 7 years, and then decided that, this was going nowhere on the new organization. So there was just a lot of politics going on. I decided to leave there because I was just fed up with it, and then it just died. It just died after that. But it was a great experience. It was something that I'll never forget. And I still keep in touch with some of my clients from back then. Still, made friends around the world. And what more can you ask for from a job, right?
Yes.
So I've been speaking for a while. What do you guys got? Any
No,
questions?
wow, sir. No, wow, sir. Seriously, what such an amazing career you have and success, you know. And like seriously, like this guy says, Donald Trump. You know, you're gonna think big, and you just seriously, you just got it there. You know, you came back from nothing. Like your direction was something else. The reason whatever didn't work out, you know, you went to Wall Street, like you said, no experience, no nothing. But you're such a proof, like a nice network behind you, and networking with the right people and everything, you can reach success. Also, planning it, like you said it, you know, do the things the right way, having the vision mark, you know, and all those things, they're always gonna be the main thing to be a successful person. And I just see it right now in front of me. I'm really proud of you, sir. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, the career thing is one thing, right? And, you know, you have to live a full life.
Yes.
And, you know, Eric could tell you, I mean, besides when I was traveling, I was always at all his games. He could never say I didn't go to his games or support him.
Yes.
Like some parents don't do.
Yes.
You know, but I always try to maintain that balance throughout my life. And I mean, I learned Kung Fu and taught Kung Fu for many years. So I always had something besides work as well.
Yes.
Right. But that was very productive. And I do a lot of presentations now and with major banks and other people. And a lot of the Kung Fu principles I actually incorporate into risk management. And then people get it, you know. And it's a beautiful thing. So it's been it's not really a separate part of your life. Your life is one thing.
Yes.
You know, your work and your other side of it, you know, should complement each other. And you need, you know, if you're working that hard, and I'm talking about a good, you know, probably 12-hour days easy, right? And a lot of people look at that and they're like, well, why would you do that? Well, because that gave me the opportunity to do the things I want to, you know. And if you go into any of these organizations, you know, it's competitive. You know, you know, again, you could get away with sitting around and kind of floating around, but you're not going to go anywhere.
You know, like I say, you know, you just prove all those saying I hear all the time. If you do what's easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy.
That's a good, I like that. That's good. I mean, in Chinese philosophy, they say you got to taste vinegar before you can taste honey. And the problem is, and again, we grew up differently. So
Yes.
I grew up in the Bronx. You know, we didn't have a lot of money. My family, you know, we had, you know, nothing compared to what we have today,
Yes.
right? My mother and father worked real hard, but you know, we lived in this building that eventually they knocked down. And you know, we never went on real vacations, and you know, we didn't have a lot, but you know, that's the reason. Like I said, when I would, you know, how I killed time was going to play basketball for 8 hours a day in the park. You know, when we were off, that's what we were doing. You know, it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't like we were playing video games. It wasn't like we were, you know, sitting around the house. No, it was
different. Yes, it was
we were
different.
out. We were out, and there was about respect. It was about, you know, when you walked on that court, you wanted to prove you were the best.
Yes.
And you know, I see in the suburbs, the kids don't care. You know, like I see it with, you know, with Eric's friends and this and that. You know, they play basketball for an hour. Okay, we're done. You know, and it's like we would be fighting to play. Like we would play for 3 or 4 hours, come home for lunch, and then we'd play for another 4 or 5 hours.
For another 4 hours, yeah.
And you know, if you lost, you had to sit out. So you never wanted to lose. And that kind of, you know, gave us that momentum to do some of the things that I think the kids in the suburbs don't ever feel that. And you know, and you can see it. That's where, I mean, a lot of inner city kids end up going to the NBA, going to the pros, and all kinds of things because they don't have those luxuries. They don't have the luxury of not playing. They're not going on a million vacations. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. They're thinking, if I don't play hard or work hard, I'm not getting out of this mess. I'm not getting out of this place that I don't really like where I live. To better themselves. And you know, that's something that I think is a real problem today. That the kids kind of drift. You know, they just kind of drift back and forth, and you know, they don't have any passion.
A question for this: why you really think that is happening this? You really think it's because of the parents at home, the society around, or what is the motive right now? Like people feeling like that.
Well, one of the things is in our generation, our parents went through the Great Depression.
Okay.
That's
yes,
true.
that's true.
And again, if you look at history, you look at what really happened in the Great Depression, and I mean in a detailed way. I mean, you had tents set up in Central Park where people starving to death. You had soup kitchens. So they grew up with that attitude, and then there was World War II.
Yes.
Right? And like my father fought in World War II. He was in the Navy, in the Pacific. He was at Iwo Jima. He was at Okinawa. He was at a whole bunch of places. And a lot of other people's fathers, you know, had to fight that terrible war. And that gave you, you know, a different view of the world.
Yes.
You know, and then, like, my generation became more affluent. And then, you know, we moved to the suburbs. And the suburbs things are nice. And everybody kind of just, you know, just kind of goes along, and
it's smooth and easy.
yeah, you know, I mean, some kids have had real passion and still do. That's why they end up working for Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley or one of these, you know, top firms, and they're successful, or you know, they make it on the sports level, or they make it in anything they do. I mean, but a lot of the kids don't. A lot of the kids didn't worry about eating. Didn't worry about, you know, where their next meal was coming from, or this or that, and because of that, they get lazy. It's that simple. They get lazy, and you know, and then because they're treated a certain way, they feel like I was telling you before, right? They feel like, oh, you want me to do that? You know, like, well, yeah.
Yes. You know, the other day I was listening to this speaker, and he was mentioning something about this, like. Also, we messed up kids because now we started giving trophies, even in the world on the seven spot.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like just because we didn't want them to feel bad, but they didn't earn it, so they lost the passion to earn things, to work hard.
Yeah.
Like you said it, and it is true. I've been paying attention to that lately, and I agree with you. You know.
Well, there's some funny George Carlin skits about that, where, you know, I don't know if you heard the George Carlin skit. It's great. You know, where it's like, oh, you know, there's no such thing as being a loser. You're the last winner, and then he goes, then you grow up, and he's right. You grow up, and you get a job, and your boss calls you a loser.
Yeah.
Get out of here! You're fired, you loser, right? Because nobody ever challenged the kids.
Yeah, no, everybody challenges the kids. Yeah, and you're right. You know,
they're afraid to challenge them, and you know, like I said, with us, it was, you know, you had pride about walking on the court and being the best.
Yes.
I mean, you know, and a lot of that's missing.
You know, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know, because now lately, on these days, they trying to see like something wrong being the better, or competition. The other day at work, this guy goes like, I don't like to compete. I was like, well, so you have no ambition in your life.
Right.
Because even a little competition at work for whatever, who sells this or who does that, you need to feel excited. You need to start working your mind. Okay, how I'm gonna do this for these sellings to win this competition, because it gives you an inspiration, the hard work, the ethic, and everything else. And that nothing else fulfills it outside, just from you, from the inside within, and that's really good.
Well, you don't study animal kingdom if you don't hunt. You know, you're not going to eat.
Exactly.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing wrong with outshining people if you're willing to work for it.
Yes.
You know, and you should have that pride that you know, you want to outwork people. If you can walk into a class and know the subject better than a teacher the day you walk in, why wouldn't you do that?
Yes, you're right.
Right, and it's amazing to me that, again, it's all about distractions. It's all about, you know, what. So how do I spend my day? Well, why wouldn't you spend an hour or 2 hours a day doing that if you're in school? Right,
Yes.
and I said walking in and knowing more than the teacher does.
Yes.
But no, I'd rather watch a movie. I'd rather do this. I'd rather do that. I gotta call my friends. I mean, it's like, well, no. What are you doing?
That's kind of the thing that I was taught between high school and college. High school, there wasn't really much of an expectation set forward for that. It was just kind of, you walk in, teacher's giving the lecture, this is what you're going to absorb. College, almost every professor had told me that you need to already study the material, that you already had to look over the chapter or whatever was coming up next, so that when you go into class, it's a discussion. It's not just, I'm putting it right into your brain. It's, we're talking back and forth to understand this thing. Like, you're basically on their level.
And the difference is, when I was in college, you'd have to go to the library to learn anything. Mm-hmm. And everybody in your class is going after the same book.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that challenge today.
No, not anymore.
You know, I mean, you can go on the internet and you can learn anything at any time on any subject. And, you know, like, I've read a lot of Stephen Hawking's books and you know, astrophysics, and I couldn't believe how much I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. It gave me a whole new perspective on the world. And learning, you should never stop learning.
Yes.
And I just see a lot of people not learning anything and wasting their time, and you know, again, it's a terrible way to go through life. You know, that it's just to me, it's the biggest sin you could have, right? Is to not achieve your potential.
Yes.
And especially when the world has, at least here in this country, you've got so many things that at your fingertips that you could do. And the question is, why don't you do them? Well, you know, I guess I'm so busy today, you know. And it's like, busy doing what?
I have two questions. First one being is, obviously, you have a pretty extensive resume in regards to business experience in risk management and in life. What would be, because last episode in the podcast we talked about success and what we all thought success is. You know, some people think success is about, you know, making a lot of money, and that's a great thing to have. Some other people are a little more minimalistic, and they think it's more of a simple life, and they're happy, and they perceive that as success. So, what would you say is success?
Well, as I was saying before, I mean, success is when you do something for a living and it's not work.
So that could be anything.
It could be anything, right? But at the same time, if you can't provide for yourself or your family, I don't care what you're doing, that you think you're successful, you're not. You got to be able to provide for yourself and your family, right? So the two go hand in hand. Now, you get some people who are missionaries who they don't have a family, and they're doing work that is incredible. And some of them, like a Mother Teresa, she's reached the pinnacle of charity, and that's what she dedicated her life to. That's success without the money. But for most of us, you know, that should go hand in hand. If you really are passionate about what you do, and it's in some kind of business form or coaching or whatever it is, if you're the best, you're going to make money.
You want to make money, exactly.
I mean, it's that simple. The money's going to follow, right? If you're mediocre, if you're average, you're not. And, you know, like I said, you have to have the guts to be passionate about what you do and what you pursue. I mean, you know, you go to high school coach, you might make $3,000 a year, $4,000 a year at most high schools. I mean, you know, then you get to college and you get guys making $3-4 million a year, right? Then you get to the NBA and they're making $5 to $7 or $8 million a year coaches.
Yes.
Right, but you know, you don't just snap your fingers and be an NBA coach or a top college coach. It takes dedication. It takes watching films all day long.
Years and years.
It takes sweat, right? And it takes sweat. It takes passion and love. I mean, a lot of these guys aren't doing it just for the money. The money comes because they got so good at something because of what they love. I look at a guy like Steph Curry, right? Steph Curry is making, I think, like $41 million a year. He grew up with money because his father was an NBA player. And he's jumping up and down on the bench like a lunatic when his teammates put a ball in. Now, he's not faking it. He's not doing that for money. You know, the money came, but he's doing it because he loves the game. LeBron James is the same way. I mean, I see LeBron James, and he's so passionate about what he does. And you know, and you see it in those guys. The money is numbers to them.
Yes.
But
Right.
but those guys love the game. Like I think LeBron James, and I've heard about this. If he sees somebody playing basketball, he'll stop and watch, right? Just because he loves the game so much, right? And again, because he made himself into the best, the money came. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it did a little bit. I mean, I think in the end of the day, you have to take risk, and you know, even if it's unpopular to people, if you believe in it enough, you should go for it.
Yeah, I mean, it depends though. Like again, it's you. How passionate are you, right? And the whole thing is, being on the surface of stuff is one thing, and you may think, well, that's passion, but there's 1,000, 10,000 people who are more passionate about it than you, who are going deep into it, and that's the thing, right? It's chances are, if you set yourself up with, yeah, I want to do X, and you study everything there is about X, everything, right? And you write papers, you think in your brain how you could improve it, and you come up with new ways of doing X, and you're working on X, every waking minute,
Yes.
right? There's a good chance that that's going to pay off, right? But if you're doing, yeah, I want to do X, and then, oh, well, I can't really do it today. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. You're gonna be nothing. I mean, you're not being honest with yourself. In order to position yourself like that, you have to be putting in the time. There's no, what's Kung Fu? Remember we did
It's time and effort.
time and effort. That's what Kung Fu really means. It has nothing to do with martial arts. It's time and effort. Because to be a good Kung Fu master, you've got to put in a zillion hours, right? You can't fake it, and how many people are really willing to do that?
That's the key, is finding what you love to do. It's a lot of trial and error, I would say, right?
And luck, too.
And luck. You got the opportunity from the sport of basketball, worked hard, worked your way up, and then obviously everything else fell into place. But I feel like luck, opportunity, and a little bit of risk. You have to do a little bit of everything until you find.
Yeah, but it's like lottery. You got to be in it to win it. I never took a business class in my life, and then I ended up in a business, and then I ended up rolling out one of the most successful products that Merrill Lynch ever had. And then from there, because I was there, right? I was in the game. I met the systems people who were on the same floor as me, and they said, we have this massive project, and since you know the branch network, are you interested? And at the time, I'm like, well, technology is like 1981. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a good field to be in. Plus, with the job that I had, I was really traveling every day. And if you think that's fun, it is not fun.
It's not fun.
I was jumping on airplanes almost every day. And, and even though I was out of college, and I was like, wow, this is great, expense account, and man, you just get after 9 months, I was tired of that.
Where's the craziest place you ever traveled to?
Well, I mean, there's been a lot, but I think I would say one of the places that I really loved was going to Beijing, going to China, going to Taiwan. But I had great experiences with people all around the world. That's the thing, that the more you meet people around the world, the more you realize we're all the same.
Yes.
And that's the thing. And I've had great experiences with people, and all around the world, and had friends all around the world, really. And again, some of it was through basketball, some of it was through work, and that kind of. You think about it, right? I'm a kid from the Bronx who really didn't go anywhere until I got to high school, where I, was playing basketball. Then we traveled here, traveled there, to go to go to China and present to the Bank of China, or all these major Chinese banks, and go to Beijing and go to Shanghai and these places. That's so exotic. I mean, that is such a a way beyond your dreams type of thing, and then to make friends with those people and to have them as clients in Thailand and you know, all these places that were so exotic. I mean, that was just fabulous. But I couldn't have done that unless I made that first step of thinking about a better way of doing something and putting the effort in to actually build it out, you know, and make it happen. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people have ideas, but they don't never get off the paper.
Yes, that is true.
You know?
And I got another question.
Sure.
So you say your dream was always also to go to the NBA and you play hard and everything.
Yeah.
All right. And what would happen if you really made it to the NBA?
Yeah.
You think you would have been with Eric at his games? You think you would be able to take care of the same way your family?
Different. It would have been, my life would have been very different. I mean, the one thing, like you hear people say, I have no regrets. Well, they're full of shit. There's something you gotta regret in life.
We all have regrets. We all do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the one regret I said I do have is not giving that school that I was got the scholarship to, not staying the full year.
Okay.
Right, because in scrimmages I was averaging 36 points a game.
Wow.
And I was just dominating people,
Wow.
right? And it was like, you know, I think back now, like I should have just stayed there that 1 year and just like got my name built up, and you know, and that could have led to a whole bunch of other things, right?
Yes.
And you know, then I had chances to play in Europe, and I didn't want to do that. I was like, because I had a choice, like, do I go play in Europe or do I go to Merrill Lynch? And it was like, I'm going to Merrill Lynch. You know, and sometimes I regret that. Like, you know, this guy said to me, oh, you got to come down. Because I was playing against NBA players, and I had a pretty big game against these guys who ended up going to the NBA. And one guy said to me, man, you got to come down and try out. You know, they're doing, you know, Italy, they're doing this, doing that. And I just went, you know what, I'm going to go work at Merrill Lynch. You know, it was like, you know, like I just gave up on that. And that was okay. I could live with that. The thing about the 1 year, I should have stayed the 1 year in that college, even though, I mean, the college, they weren't teaching me anything. I had a 4-something index, and I didn't need to study at all. And that's what really turned me off. I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. I want to learn something. I mean, this was just too easy for me. And, you know, but I was stupid. Like, you know, everybody makes stupid mistakes when they're kids. But I should have, and I was young, because I was in college when I was 17.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I was young, you know, and it's like, if I had to do it over, I would say, yeah, stay that 1 year, dominate the league, kill everybody, and then go to a bigger school.
What was your fondest memory in basketball?
My fondest memory in basketball was I was playing in this serious men's league, a lot of D1 players, I said some NBA players, and I got a fast break, and I don't know what made me do it, but I knew this guy was on my shoulder, and I went up and I dunked it backwards on him, and it was on cable TV.
Okay.
And we went afterwards. We won the game, and I don't know what made me make that move. You know what I mean? Like, but I just instinctively did it. We went to the bar afterwards. And everybody was going nuts. They kept on playing it and playing it and playing it. But I mean, I had so many great memories playing basketball. You know, and like it's funny because I think about some of those games that I played in high school. And I remember like certain moves and baskets I made, or block shots. I had one game where I blocked 10 shots in one game.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And it was like this, and I remember like them. Like it's like weird. It's like
Yeah, in the same way, like for baseball, there's times when I remember certain games. I don't know why, but you just can't forget them. Like Mother's Day, I remember going 3 for 3 with 3 home runs at Fireman's Field, and the other baseball field, a myth. Remember a myth?
Yeah.
When I hit over the oak tree.
Yeah.
Right, and just like those things I'll never forget.
You'll never forget those, and that's always good to, you know, again to put you into the next level of okay, I did that at that level. Now what's next?
Obviously, they don't know this. I do. Another insightful, I guess, experience you would have is when you were training as an officer.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, do you think everyone should at least do a year in the military or do a tour at least?
Everybody should put at least a year in the military. And again, I think they need to adjust it so that you can do that. Like like even today, you can go with the National Guard and you can get pulled into real conflicts. Like National Guard fought almost every war, but generally, you know, the chances are less, and it's something where you go in, you get all the training, and then from there, you know, you do 2 weeks a year, and every other weekend or something like that, you're on active duty. Again, unless like they did it in Afghanistan, Iraq, which was awful, where they kept on making these kids go back tour after tour after tour, and I don't know how you do that. I mean, that was terrible. That was a terrible abuse of the military, because once you do one tour, you should be done.
Yeah.
And warfare, you know what I mean? Warfare. The tour could be you're in a combat zone for a year and then you're out, right? And then like even in some of the other wars, it's like, I mean, except for like World War II, where you know the world was on edge, right? The world was on edge, right? But like these other wars, you generally did a year and they got you out of the combat zone unless you wanted to be in the combat zone.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a guy who trained me, was in Vietnam for 8 years.
Oh wow.
He was a Green Beret, and you know, and he paid the price for it because, you know, he totally professional soldier, great guy. I mean, you know, real honest. He used to evaluate us as we used to go out. So we were going in. We were second lieutenants, and you know, we went to Fort Knox, and you know, it was one of the hardest things you'll ever do. I mean, you have no idea how hard it is. And they purposely push you to the limit. And the whole idea is that they show you that you could do a lot more than you think you could do. And that's the whole purpose. Yeah. But besides training you in warfare and everything else, but physical training was incredible. And these people, though, like, they really, really knew what they were doing. And I really respected them. And then, you know, I had to make a decision after I came out. I had to make a decision if I was going to accept my commission and go in full time. My next school would have been jump school at Fort Bragg. And then, you know, I didn't like the situation because as an officer, they wouldn't guarantee you where they'd send you. And like, you know, like whether or not you're going, I wanted to go in the Air Cavalry, and then I had my list, and then like, well, if we don't give you that, it's too bad. As an officer, as an enlisted man, you could actually get out. But as an officer, they said you're an executive of the president, and we'll put you wherever we want to put you. And then the time was going to be a long time too, that they would hold you where they could actually call you back. I had one of my friend's fathers in the Cuban Missile Crisis. He was like 40 years old.
Oh, wow.
They called him back when the Cuban Missile Crisis happened. And he was out of the military for years. And it was all of a sudden like, hey, you were an officer, you're back in.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
You had to go. There's no...
There's no, like, you know.
Like,
hey, you know, I'm kind of busy.
Yeah.
There's no.
But I think it was a great experience. I think everybody should do a year of service. And I think maybe it's a year of service in other ways too, besides just the military. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I'd recommend it to anybody. But again, going as an officer, you know, it's a whole different thing, and they really teach you how to think. And where in the enlisted man, it's a lot of they teach you to follow orders.
Yes.
And it's snap decision orders, like, you know. Because you can't have people questioning you if you give them an order.
No, you're absolutely right, because I did a military service in Mexico when you hit 18 years old. Over there, you have to do it. Every man has to do it, you know, a whole year. And when I did my service, during that year also they changed it a lot. They continue doing in the training, the combat training and everything else, but not as hard as it used to be. Because they started doing half of the military service for people also that didn't finish the high school.
Okay.
So they started doing classes for them. Instead of starting training for service military, they started doing half and half. And me, because I was graduated from high school, they started me educating me to be a teacher for them.
Okay.
You know, they started training and everything, and that's how I did my service. I did half of the military thing. They showed me how to clean a weapon, how to shoot it, and everything. Like you say, the physical training. The physical training is no joke. I remember those. A lot of push-ups, a lot of running up and down, a lot of climbing on the rope. And I was like, wow, this is why I have to do this, you know? But it was because you need it. And when I finished all that, it feels really good because when they give you your military service, and you see your picture on that green card, I was like, damn, I'm part of this thing, you know. You feel good, you know. For me, it felt good.
You feel accomplished.
Yeah, it felt good.
You feel pride about it. I mean, you know, like with us though. I mean, we were in Fort Knox, Kentucky. It was humid and hot, and you know, like you'd have 60 or 70 pounds of gear on you, and then you did like a 25-mile hike. You know, and I got pictures of hills. There's one hill they called Heartbreak Hill, and the thing is almost straight up. It's a road. It's on a road too, and it's almost straight up. And I mean, like,
it is just long way.
You have to get mentally tough to be able to continue to do that.
Yes.
And I was in great shape from playing basketball and everything. There were some guys who weren't, and they really struggled, but they did it. But like for me, it wasn't that hard. But some of these other guys were dying.
So yeah, like, you know, we all grew up in different time periods, and you especially, as far as music goes, was in one of the best music eras known to man. So, I mean, for me, I listened to a lot of your music through CDs or on YouTube, things like that. But what was it like experiencing it, like, almost in person?
Yeah, and again, I'll start off with the Beatles, with the Ed Sullivan Show, and seeing the Beatles for the first time was just an amazing experience. And then it just seemed like everything just changed, like, after that. Like, I was into the Beach Boys before that, and there was other groups like that. And the Beach Boys I still remained into. Actually, the Beatles were big fans of the Beach Boys. And there's a whole bunch of stories where they, you know, went and listened to music. John Lennon and Paul McCartney went to Brian Wilson's hotel room to listen to it. I mean, they were big fans of each other, but then, you know, you had other whole British invasion with a whole bunch of other British groups, the Rolling Stones, and it was just an amazing time. And then you got more into the Doors. You know, you had some of the LA bands, you know, really picking up on it, and the music just exploded. And again, I look at it as that because of, again, this friction with the war and other things going on, that creates pressure on society, and they explode out into different things.
Exactly.
And
so, like, using the music as a form of expression.
Yeah, and it was, and then later on, like when you got to, you know, 68, it was a form of protest.
Right.
You know, that's where you had Woodstock. That's where you had
like CCR.
Yeah, well, CCR, actually, that was the first band I ever saw live. I was 12 years old.
Okay.
Me and my friend we snuck away. We went to a concert, Forest Hills Tennis Stadium. I saw Creedence Clearwater Revival, Booker T and the MGs, and Tower of Power. And, you know, we had no idea what was going on. My friend said, oh, we get tickets for like $6 or something. And,
$6.
Yeah.
Imagine that, right?
Yeah.
I'm crying.
And we were in junior high school. We just got out of junior high school, and there was that summer, and it was just amazing. But all these bands started really coming up, and then you got, things started getting a little bit weird with the Vietnam War, and then, you know, I mean, if you were 18 and you weren't in college, you went to Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
Right? And that creates a lot of stress. And then once you graduated college, you went to Vietnam. You see the Animal House, and, you know, where they threatened them. They said, you know, I'm gonna let the draft board know and pull you deferment.
Yep.
You were going to Vietnam, and you started at that point seeing a lot of stuff go on about Vietnam, and I think that had a big influence on the music. That's where you had a lot of protest music. I said, like Jimi Hendrix.
That's true, yeah.
And Jimi Hendrix was a paratrooper. You know, so like you had a whole bunch of things going on, and society just went crazy. I mean, you know, people were doing acid, everybody was questioning everything, and you know, like we were kind of too young for that. But if you just see you saw what was going on, it was very different. It was an incredible cultural change. and then I say from there, I mean you started having more of the Who with Tommy was a big change. The Moody Blues with Days of Future Past, where it was orchestral music, which was beautiful. Right? It was beautiful music, and then you had Jethro Tull. You had all these great bands that were unique. Like almost everyone's music back then was unique. It had a real distinguishing sound, and we loved it. We started going to concerts. Probably when I was in high school. Then I saw Pink Floyd. I saw Jethro Tull. We saw a whole bunch of groups, and we loved it. I mean, but the group that you guys might not know a lot about is Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and I saw them in concert. And in concert, they were probably one of the best groups that I ever seen in my life. And they had such a rich sound; it was incredible. And their music was very different.
It's very unique.
Yeah, there's
almost from one song to the next.
Yeah, and there's no group that you'd say, well, they sound like them, or and then you get into like those rock groups. A lot of them, a number of them, are still around. They're still doing concerts, and you go to their concerts, and it still sound great.
Yeah.
And somebody said like the golden age of music was up until 1975. And then after that, you got into the disco era. And the disco era, like, most people don't even remember any songs from the disco era. Like, it's just...
Staying Alive?
Yeah, Staying Alive. And again, not to knock it, but it just... the songs came, they were popular then, and then they died, and it was like, yeah. I said, you turn on a radio...
And the fashion with it, too.
Yeah, you turn on a radio, and, you're still hearing... Beatles, you're still hearing the Who, you're still hearing Pink Floyd, you're still hearing
Queen,
all these different
Leppard.
Yeah, you're still hearing Led Zeppelin, you're still hearing
Led Zeppelin.
And again, you think back about it, there's no groups that sound like that today.
Music today, you're not a fan at all? Like there's no... I'm not saying, like, I know you don't listen to rap or hip hop or anything like that.
I said Green Day, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Journey. I love Journey.
Journey's good.
And
Classic.
When it comes on, it's unique.
Yeah.
Like that's Journey.
And every bat mitzvah, what was the song? Don't Stop Believing. It's every bat mitzvah, bar mitzvah, wedding, Sweet 16. That song has to come on once.
Yeah, I mean. There's some rap I could listen to.
Really?
I'm into... I wouldn't listen to it, but I could listen to it, if you know what I mean. Like, I wouldn't go out and get it, you know what I mean?
Who is it? What?
I think Eminem, and that's kind of old stuff by now.
Yeah.
Some of his stuff was interesting. A lot... I go by live, how you perform live.
Oh, yeah.
And when I go see a concert, most of the bands I go see... They're better live than they are on record. I mean, they are much better live than they are recorded. And then it's just the opposite with rap. I've seen some videos of guys doing rap who were big time rappers, and they were awful. I mean, live they were awful. And there's some bands that like the Red Hot Chili Peppers was a band. They were okay. That's not rap, but I mean they were okay.
They got better.
And then they played the Super Bowl, and they got exposed for being, they were terrible live. I mean, I'll never forget when Eric was telling him about Tom Petty. I said, Tom Petty's got a real rockin' sound. He's like, I don't like Tom Petty, I don't know. And then he heard the Super Bowl, him play at the Super Bowl, and you realize that Tom Petty could really rock. I mean, he had a real rock sound.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. And, I said, that's the one thing I go by. When I go see them live, how good are they?
Yeah.
I think the closest thing to live music that you really enjoy is, for me, country music. I feel like they still have the ability to, rock the house and take it up another notch from, the albums, like from the...
Well, I do like some country music, too, because of you. You got me into it, but that's rock today. That's not necessarily country music. Johnny Cash is country music, and some of some of these things.
Oh, yeah.
Like the sound today sounds like folk rock or soft rock.
Yeah.
And even some of it's hard rock. I mean, so country music has changed a lot. I think some of the performers are great, though. I mean, they really do a good job. But you hear them live, I'm sure they're really good live.
I mean, when I saw Luke Bryan live with John, remember that story? He didn't make it. Anyway,
yeah.
I enjoyed the concert. John didn't because he never experienced it, but it was phenomenal.
Yeah. But it's more rock today than it is country. Again, it's a blend, and it's fine.
Yeah, it's the beautiful thing about music. You know, everyone has their own taste. Everyone has their own preferences. My friend Nick, who is the pro gamer, he loves like the mumble rap, gangster rap. I can't stand that because I feel like my brain cells are getting burned every time I listen to it. But he relates to it, and he loves that music as much as I like country music. And I talked to Nick about it, and I'm like, well, if you think about music, generally they all talk about the same thing, whether it's, something about love, whether it's breakup, hooking up, finding the one, right?
Right.
They all talk about some form of intoxication, drugs, drinking, beer.
Yeah,
Then
any
talk
kind
about
of
smoking, whatever, and transportation, private planes, private boats, cars. That's usually the general theme of music. But the thing is, it's the question of what makes each genre different is how they portray the message that they want to portray, right? So a country music, what they're going to do it a different way than Lil Uzi would, right, or Paul McCartney would, right? But they all have this. I believe they all have the same message, just a matter of how they speak of it, or sing of it, or rap of it.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's true.
We've all seen the movie Wolf of Wall Street, right?
Yeah.
Obviously they Hollywooded it up and made it a little more extreme. But were there things like that happening on Wall Street, like cocaine and things like that?
Yeah, back in the '80s, I used to see people doing coke and stuff like that. When I went to a party, I went to a ski trip right out of, when I was right out of college. And I get on the bus and the bus was right out in front of headquarters. And as soon as the bus started moving, people started smoking weed, and I was like, "What? Like, this is kind of weird, right?" And there was a lot of sex stuff. There was a lot of things in the '80s that were going on. It was wild back then. In the '80s, and Wall Street was wild.
So the movie was kind of close.
Yeah. It was probably, there's a lot more things than that went on back then.
Interesting.
You know what's funny that you mentioned the movie right now, because when he was talking about when he got the interview with his friend and inviting to drink at 10 a.m., I was remembering the scene of this guy when he goes with the guy, they start working in the restaurant, and he goes like, "Doo-dum,
oh yeah.
And he gives the line of coke, and he goes, "You don't do it, I don't trust you." I'm like, he was like, "You don't drink with me, I don't trust you."
There you go. Yeah. It was wild. I mean, and there was obviously a lot of sexism. When you look at it like back on with today's world, like retrofitting the worlds is a really bad mistake. Like people look back and say, "Oh well, they're using today's knowledge and morals to go back in time and reinvent how those people should have acted," and that's a really big mistake. But it was pretty wild. I mean, it definitely was.
Do you think there's still sexism going on in today's corporate America?
Oh, it's a lot less. I mean, it's all relative. You know what I mean? You have a lot more women in high positions today. You have a lot more scrutiny. I mean, this stuff goes on, anywhere, but compared to back 10, 15, 20 years ago, it's minuscule compared to then. But it's always going to go on. When you have people in power want to abuse that power or use that power for whatever reason. But today, it's a lot. You have the other reverse problem as well, where someone could easily accuse you of almost anything.
Yes.
And like we were really strict about, always keep the office door open, do this, do that. I mean, I always had good relationships with the women that worked with me, and I was always straight with them, and I didn't have to worry about them. But I know people that would bring recorders into rooms, and they could get you to say something that would sound bad.
Or they just take it out of context.
Take it out of context, or but you got to be smart. I mean, you got to change with the times. You got to be smart. Like we were talking about this the other day. If you pat someone on the back, And we used to do that all the time. It didn't matter if they were a man or a woman, right? It's like you did
Right,
a good
yeah.
job. Hey, you did a good job. Like, is somebody going to turn around? Oh, well, you touched me. And I was telling, like, Eric and Sally, it's like, and I went to the office in Brazil, and a woman that I worked with in New York was there, and she saw me and she kissed me in the morning, and then she introduced me to another lady who I didn't know. She kissed me too. Like they do that in the office, So
I gotta go to Brazil.
yeah, well, Argentina or Brazil,
There's a lot of places with that kind of
Yeah,
culture.
I mean,
yeah.
that's just,
It's a kiss hello. It's a kiss hello. It's nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
That's all it is.
Yeah,
right.
but I mean, like if you did that in New York, you'd be put in jail.
Oh yeah.
So you've gotta use your brain, know where you are, know what you're doing, and
Do you think people are, as far as that goes, like you pass someone on the back and they scream bloody murder? Do you think people are too sensitive these days?
you gotta look at it on an individual case, case by case. I mean, is there a pattern of behavior, and how does that? At the end of the day, if you're a manager, how does the people that work for you feel about you? And that that's something that you can't generalize about it.
That's fair.
That's fair.
Start wrapping it up.
I'll wrap it up. I
Sorry.
mean, thanks for inviting me. This has been a lot of fun down memory lane, and I hope anything I said, I hope it helps you and helps the audience as well.
Mr. Clay, believe me, I got a lot of nuggets from you.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. See, I was looking to meet you, and you really a great man. You had a
Thank
nice
you.
soul. You can reflect that. Your empathy with people, the way you express yourself, how you work with all other people that you didn't know, everything, the way you've been raising your family. I met the other day your other daughter too. What's the name? Angela. She's another amazing woman too, another amazing human being, and now I can tell from that where it comes from, and I'm really proud of you, sir.
Well, thank you. And
Thank you
it's
for
been
everything.
Great meeting you.
Thank you for everything.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you want to come on, just let me know. We'll figure something out. Not necessarily does it have to be a flight all the way down or to Jersey, but we can try to do it remote. But yeah, when it comes down to success and, especially hearing it from someone as high caliber as my dad, it wasn't never easy. Now looking back and listening to what he had to say, it's not sunshine and rainbows all the time. It takes, blood, sweat, hard work, time and effort, things like that to get where you want to be. And it seems like in order to get where you want to be, you have to take a risk sometimes, try new things, and
keep focus.
and stay focused. Stay focused on the end game, on the goal. And if it doesn't work out, at least you tried. Now you gotta try something different. Always be moving forward.
Always moving forward.
But yeah, so that wraps up the episode. We wish everyone, to stay safe, especially, the pandemic is still going on. If anyone out there wants to reach out to us, we'll leave our usernames on Instagram accounts in the description. Feel free to reach out. We're here to help. Any topic ideas, let us know, and we'll be happy to discuss. But once again, thank you, Dad, for coming by. It was quite the experience, for sure.
Thank you. And one last commercial. Visit our website, www.risktao.com. That's RISKTAO.com.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clay.
Awesome.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.